In the pouring rain, two swordsmen prepare for a duel. His opponent, a blonde noble, smirks with absolute confidence, while our boy glares back with grim determination, and the proctor gives the signal to begin the mock battle. This noble Vise immediately lunges forward, vowing to make an example of his foe, but in a flash the fight is over, Vise left defeated on the ground. This was Vise Vincent, the infamous evil noble. A sudden reveal shows this was all a video game he just lost. A game that ended so badly he smashes his controller in rage, and in his frustration he suddenly collapses to the floor. He awakens not in his room but inside a grand mansion, finding himself walking down a dark and ominous hallway, where he hears the sound of someone crying in fear, and sees a maid cowering before the very same villain from the game. This real Vise looking down with a cruel, predatory smile. A dark, shadowed eye opens slowly. His vision clears, revealing a strange new world. And before him, a young woman is bound on the floor. Utter confusion washes over his face, while the maid wonders who he is and where they are, leaving him stammering, unable to process the scene, as he recalls just playing a game moments before this, his mind racing to understand the bizarre situation, until the captive woman addresses him as Weiss-sama. He is struck by how beautiful she is, yet a strange feeling of familiarity nags at him, and that name, Weiss, echoes in his thoughts. He looks into a mirror, seeing a stranger's face. Realizing in horror he has become the villainous noble Weiss, this main antagonist from the game he was just playing. It all began with a game he knew inside and out. Noblesse Oblige, where the villain Weiss opposed the hero Alan, a truly despicable character who used his power on the helpless, and was ultimately crushed by the game's protagonist, leaving Weiss to lose everything and serve the Demon King, only to be used as a pawn and die a miserable death. Now living that life, he sees the maid, Lily's Scarlet, remembering the original Weiss's cruel hobby of tormenting her, a memory that fills our boy with absolute disgust. Seeing her hands bound, he feels an urge to free her, but his sudden change in behavior leaves her utterly confused, and he declares he cannot leave her like this, moving to untie her, when a sudden, horrifying realization hits him. His eyes drawn to something on Lily's neck. Seeing the poor girl trembling uncontrollably from the abuse, he decides to test his newfound ability, unleashing a healing spell on the terrified maid. This magic takes effect, steam rising from her skin, a hidden technique he'd learned from a strategy guide. Startled by her silence, he turns to see her blank expression and awkwardly tries to insist he did not do it just for her. But she remains completely still, face shadowed and unreadable, until her expression breaks into tears of pure gratitude, thanking him and calling him Weiss-sama in disbelief. As she realizes how much he must have suffered to change, her assumption leaves him utterly horrified. He can only manage to say her name, Lily's, before finally apologizing for all his past cruelty, which leaves her completely stunned and speechless, as a quiet moment settles over the grand estate. Later, at a silent dinner, Weiss sits alone at the head of a long table, where the head butler Zebus watches him with deep concern, remembering how the old master would have thrown this very plate. When Weiss suddenly calls his name, startling the old man, and apologizes for his past cruelty and wastefulness, even praising the chef for a perfectly seasoned meal, leaving Zebus speechless, muttering his young master's name before breaking down in tears of overwhelming joy and relief. This entire staff is moved to tears, much to Weiss's confusion. As he realizes they all think he has simply had a change of heart, he recalls the original Weiss's horrific abuse of the staff, and seeing Lily's hopeful face, he vows to protect them all. With newfound purpose, he opens his wardrobe, grabbing a cane, a weapon he knows is meant for punishment, and carries it towards the estate's incinerator, ready to destroy it. With new resolve, Weiss decides he must change everything, knowing the Royal Academy entrance exam is in 2 years. He recalls how the original Weiss was defeated there by the protagonist, a loss that sparked his downfall and multiplied his enemies. But if he can win that single fight, his future might change, so he vows to train to the brink of death to avoid that fate. This boy pushes his body past its absolute limits, taking only the briefest moments to rest from the grueling regimen, when a sharp voice suddenly calls out his name, turning to see a woman with a stern expression watching him. She is Milk Abatus, a renowned S-rank adventurer, who questions if he is actually taking this seriously. But Weiss can only admit he is too exhausted to move. Milk simply tells him to take a proper break because she refuses to be associated with a loser at the academy. Weiss forces a strained, awkward smile. He begins training under a new instructor he hired, a master swordswoman named Milk Abatus. Though he tries to assert his noble authority, her sadistic smile shows she is not impressed. Lily's interrupts, tapping him on the shoulder, and hands him the item he requested. He ties it around his head like a headband, declaring it a symbol of his will to train to the death. He knows the game's brutal difficulty all too well, where a single mistake means instant failure, but his body from his previous life is completely untrained, and the physical exertion is pure agony. Yet he knows building his strength is the only way forward, starting his first day with grueling form practice. To avoid his grim fate, Weiss begins a brutal training regimen, pushing his body to its absolute limit under a watchful eye. From morning until night, repeating the same grueling exercises, his determination never wavering for a single moment, again and again forcing himself through the agonizing pain. This nights pass under a silent, watchful moon, followed by days fueled by carefully planned meals, and after 2 weeks the butler notes his relentless efforts. Weiss explains that recovery magic is not enough without proper food, impressing the old man with his unwavering dedication. By the third week, a profound change has taken hold. He recalls how the first days felt like an endless hell, but now time seems to fly by in a blur of effort. With his body finally adapting, a magic tutor is summoned for him and Lily's, leaving Weiss hoping this new teacher will be a kind one. This door opens to a mysterious guest as Weiss wonders who it is. This newcomer greets him formally, face obscured by a large hat, before dramatically dropping the hat to the floor, revealing none other than Milk Abaddis, the S-rank adventurer. Weiss immediately collapses in terror, horrified to see her again. But she explains she is a master of both sword and magic, and Weiss frantically complains he asked for a kind teacher, a request that makes Milk's expression turn menacing. But she agrees to teach him magic kindly, much to his relief. With a sweet smile, she promises he is in professional hands. Her kind training is standing under a raging waterfall, and he screams in agony, wondering what part of this is kind. Milk coolly informs him this is easier than sword practice, explaining that this grueling effort is the only way to build his power. He must repeat this agonizing process daily until he collapses. He remembers the original Weiss's cruelty towards the staff, and so he adds magic training to his regimen. Beginning combat practice with his new instructor, but she easily overpowers him with a single blow, leaving him on the ground as she calls him sloppy. Lily's immediately rushes in to cast a healing spell, and he thanks her while Milk calls him a punching bag. Through the exhaustion, a strange thought occurs to him, wondering why a lazy bum like him is pushing so hard, how he can possibly endure this agonizing pain. He recalls his past life as a complete shut-in. A person who always ran from hardship and gave up, so why can he fight with such desperation now? What is the difference between his past and present? 2 months pass in this brutal, relentless training. After another grueling session, Weiss takes a moment to recover. When a hand suddenly rests on his head, he turns to see Milk looking down at him, who praises his improvement after 2 hours of training, leaving him completely flustered by the gesture. He asks if this is really her idea of a gentle course, a reward she offers for every goal he manages to achieve. Weiss points out the reward hardly matches the punishment, but she darkly insists that is not the case at all. Her words leave him confused, spotting someone approaching. It is Lily's, watching them from a distance, who has arrived with a basket of food for his lunch. She walks over to the exhausted pair, her face beaming with pride at his hard work. As Milk explains she is only the stick, the carrot comes from everyone else. Lily's reminds him to never forget the whip that supports him, and the words strike a deep chord within Weiss, leaving the maid completely baffled by his reaction. He realizes the only reason he can push himself is because of them, thinking of Lily's, who always cheers him on, and Zebus, who supports him with every meal, even Milk, who hardens her heart for his sake. Without them, he knows he could not have come this far. He reflects on how both the original Weiss and his past self were selfish, leaving him utterly alone with no one to guide him. But now he understands what he truly needed. A loving whip to keep him on the right path. With a fierce grin, he vows to stop living only for himself. His old goal was just to avoid ruin and death, but now he will fight to protect Lily's and the others. Now he fights not just for himself, but for everyone else. Determined to escape the game's path of ruin, this nights of grueling training continue, followed by equally brutal days. Weiss pushes himself through unimaginable agony. As Milk sets his next goal, 4 hours of non-stop effort, a sight too painful for Lily's to bear. Eventually, the day arrives for them to leave for the city. This 3 of them walking together as a party. They arrive at a large building in the city center, where a pair of boorish adventurers laugh loudly. A place Weiss recognizes as the game's starting town. His expression darkens, disgusted by what he sees. As 2 thugs harass a citizen in the street, he turns to his instructor for guidance. With newfound confidence, Weiss asks who his opponent will be. 3 months later, he is led to a combat test in the city streets, scoffing at the idea of fighting some random street thugs, until a sudden, horrifying realization hits him. Milk simply offers a chilling, knowing smile. She assures him she has found the perfect opponent, much to his terror, and Lily's cheers him on, but Weiss is shaking with fear. From a distance, a group of thugs spots them approaching. This men making crude remarks about the little girl, their taunts about the cheeky brat getting under Weiss's skin. Milk calmly warns them to watch their mouths or he will kill them, as our boy recognizes this as the most dangerous street in town. He vows to protect Lily's from these loudmouths no matter what. A fire of determination burns in his eyes, but Milk just yawns, dismissing the thugs as nobodies. Lily's agrees with him, a sweet smile on her face, but Weiss suddenly feels a terrifying, killing intent from her. He wonders if it is just his imagination as they arrive at a building. This local adventurers guild, bustling with activity. Inside, a hooded figure approaches the front desk, while a trio of menacing thugs watch from a nearby table. These ruffians corner a young boy, ordering him outside, and Weiss recognizes them as his opponents, the Buden brothers. From a window, he learns their heinous crimes have long been ignored, with the local guards already bribed and out of the picture. Lily smirks, calling them the perfect opponents for real combat, yet Weiss calmly suggests they should just head home. This scene cuts to Lily's dragging him away from the aftermath, holding the battered boy close as he bleeds from his wounds. She tells him he has strength and guts but no real fighting experience. Milk explains real combat is a path he must walk now, warning that she will not always be there to protect him, as many die from inexperience when fighting alone. But with her here, she can save him if things go wrong. She puts an arm around him, telling him to face it with confidence. Weiss is moved by her reliability, his confidence soaring, only to find himself suddenly abandoned in the street. He realizes he was tricked and Lily's is gone too. A thug grabs him, furious that his backup disappeared, dragging him toward a dark alleyway as Weiss panics. He knows it is too late to back down and steals his resolve, remembering his grim objective to sever one of their arms. But it is 3 against 1 and he doubts he can win directly, especially since these thugs are far more skilled than they look. As they pull him deeper into the alley, he scrambles for a plan. These thugs drag him off before he can even react, as he recalls Milk's final words of encouragement to remember all the lessons she drilled into him. Meanwhile, his 2 companions watch from a safe distance, where Lily's calls the instructor's methods far too cruel. Milk argues it is not a real fight if he expects a rescue, but drunkenly promises to step in if he is truly in danger. In another part of town, Lily's is spotted by a group of thugs, her expression hardening at their unwanted attention. 2 of the men move in closer, making crude remarks. Before their entire crew surrounds her table, this leader makes a vile proposition, revealing a group of bound captives in the corner. A terrifying rage suddenly fills her eyes, and in an instant the room explodes into chaos. These 2 brothers block his path, ready for a fight, when a hand suddenly reaches out from behind one of them. It grabs the thug's head, who screams in agony. Our boy lunges forward with blinding speed, taking them by surprise, and in a flash he severs the man's arm completely. He remembers his training, always strike first. A vital lesson from Milk that echoes in his mind, when she drilled into him at every possible moment. Even the strongest opponent falls if you strike before they are ready. Back in the present, the remaining brothers are stunned, their shock quickly turning into pure, unadulterated rage. He puts the lesson into practice, moving before they can react, and a swift kick connects, stunning the second brother. This third thug retaliates, swinging a massive cleaver down on him. But with gritted teeth, he holds his ground, refusing to back down. With a flash of steel, the fight begins, as Weiss recalls his old self, always running from problems. But that lazy past is gone forever. He knows waiting around will not solve anything, so if something must be done, he will do it himself. Every move is decisive, with no hesitation, as he unleashes a powerful spell to change his fate, leaving all 3 thugs utterly defeated on the ground. His surprise attack was a complete success, knowing a direct fight in the alley was unwinnable. By moving before his enemies, he secured the victory. From a nearby window, he hears a voice declare it a perfect score, but Milk corrects the assessment to a mere 70 points. She claims she'd have been more direct, while Lily's gives him 200, leaving our boy completely bewildered by their reactions. This scene cuts away, with Weiss panicking over being abandoned, leaving him to curse his supposed allies. But a flashback reveals a curious detail from earlier, a small, dark stain on Lily's sleeve. Weiss had pointed it out, asking if it was blood, but she simply smiled and hid her wrist, dismissing his concern as just his imagination. This truth is revealed in a report of a major crime, where over 20 vicious bandits were apprehended after a brawl. Though no one perished, the criminals were beaten senseless. This report specifically names the Buden brothers among the captured, and surprisingly credits Weiss for his cooperation. Elsewhere, Milk reflects on the outcome, a proud smirk on her face at how things played out. Later, Weiss receives a letter of thanks, utterly confused about the bandits. A flashback reveals Weiss training under a powerful waterfall, his expression hardened with intense focus. For a year and a half, he endured this brutal regimen, with Milk observing his every grueling day of training. He is pushed to the absolute limit of his physical strength, his magic completely depleted as he is about to collapse. But in that moment, something inside him awakens, and he unleashes a surge of power, shattering his surroundings. This feat is watched by his instructor with a stoic gaze. As Weiss smirks, realizing his exhaustion is completely gone, his senses are now sharp enough to detect danger through walls, and he can even feel the magic flowing through his own body. Back in the present, night falls over his family's estate. At dinner, a butler asks about his progress, which he says is going well, though he privately admits Milk's Spartan methods are a real handful. A flashback reveals the 4 core elements of magic, where Weiss was forced to master them all simultaneously, a brutal training regimen from his demonic instructor Milk. He reflects that someone he sees now is far worse than the Buden brothers, a realization that sends a chill down his spine, for the one he truly fears is none other than Lily's herself. An older attendant explains Milk's harsh methods are due to Weiss's talent, noting that most mages are limited to a single element. And even S-rank adventurers like Milk can only master 2. But Weiss's ability to wield all 4 is exceptionally rare. Without this push, his incredible talent might have withered away. As the man admits, he never expected the lazy boy to persevere so far, looking on with pride at how much his young master has grown. Alone in a grand hall, the attendant prepares for his return, but elsewhere, Weiss is tormented, begging to be left alone. Lily shields a broken Weiss, pleading with Milk to stop. But the instructor coldly asks about the magic he has been hiding. Through his tears, Weiss can only apologize for his secrecy. Under the moonlight, she simply orders him to show her. Our boy gets to his feet, wielding both light and dark magic. His companions recognize the opposing attributes of light and dark, special elements that exist beyond the 4 standard types. He demands to know why they kept this information hidden, admitting with a sly grin that his technique is still incomplete. Lily seems skeptical, questioning if it is truly unfinished, but a fire in his eyes reveals his newfound confidence, a spell of his own creation combining both light and dark. As they watch in shock, he vows to perfect it right now. He rises into the air, unleashing the results of his hard work. This scene then cuts to a quiet mountain range. This night begins under a pale half-moon, setting the scene for a lavish party at a grand estate. Inside, the hall is filled with high society guests. But Weiss can barely stifle a massive yawn. Lilies asks if he is already tired from the festivities or perhaps still exhausted from yesterday's events. His mind flashes back to perfecting his original magic, a unique spell combining two opposing forces. This holy curse automatically heals any allies, while simultaneously inflicting constant damage on his foes. Though he succeeded, the mana drain left him utterly exhausted, and Lilies reminds him he still needs more training. To wake him up, she offers to grab him a strong drink, dashing off before he can even protest. He watches her go, noting her assassin-like agility. He recalls a rumor about his family's hidden guard, but dismisses the thought as impossible. His attention is drawn to a woman across the hall just as a voice calls out his name. He turns to find an elegant young lady approaching him, and a name echoes in his mind: Cynthia. She is identified as Lady Violetta, a count's daughter. Her golden hair and red eyes captivating him instantly. A sudden realization dawns on him. This is Violetta Cynthia, the true heroine of the game. She greets him with a knowing smile, asking why he looks like he just turned a goblin into soup. This bizarre insult leaves him completely stunned, as a forgotten memory makes him tremble. He was the villain, hated by every character in the game. Among them, Cynthia despised Weiss above all others. A memory suddenly surfaces. This time she left him for dead on the floor. She had appeared at the Vincent family estate with a smug grin, a gathering of nobles he now regrets ever attending. To his shock, he'd encountered Cynthia before even enrolling, having done nothing yet to deserve her resentment. His eyes widen in sudden realization, as a fragmented memory flashes before him, a vision of his past self with a knowing smirk. This leaves the present-day Cynthia completely baffled. As Weiss curses, trying to piece together the vague memory, and then another flash hits him, a scene where his former self held her at knife point. She stares him down, asking if he truly forgot that day. A painful memory surfaces of a woman accusing him of a terrible act. Her face twists with contempt for the filthy aristocrat as she scorns him for daring to attend the party. Her eyes burn with a hatred that could kill, leaving Weiss with only one option left. He offers a deep, sincere apology to Lady Cynthia, admitting his wrongdoing in front of the entire crowd. She coldly states that he will never be fully forgiven, but a thought reveals she is not a complete monster. Her expression softens ever so slightly. She admits surprise at seeing a noble bow his head in public, and Weiss glances up with a sly, calculating look. Cynthia seems to lower her guard just a little, as our boy feels the odds of his ruin decrease. For now, this is the only move he can make to survive. Weiss thinks of Cynthia, the original story's heroine, knowing their worlds of evil and light can never mix. He sees himself as Icarus flying too close to the sun and resolves that he must keep his distance from her. But in the present, a noblewoman takes his hand, their eyes meeting across the crowded ballroom. Elsewhere, a maid moves through the party guests, her expression suddenly turning to shock. As she watches Weiss being led away by the woman, this mysterious lady then asks him for a dance, pulling him onto the floor amidst the other couples. He is completely flustered as the maid tries to get his attention, and soon finds himself sitting with the woman outside. She comments on the beautiful weather and chirping birds, leaving Weiss to simply smile at the peaceful scene. They sit in the garden of the Grand Vincent family villa, where Weiss internally panics, wondering why Cynthia is there. She brings up the night of the incident, asking for a dance, his mind flashing back to their tense meeting on the ballroom floor. Cynthia points out his obviously confused expression, revealing with a smile that she knows he has changed. She is somehow aware of his secret, grueling training for the academy, and her gaze narrows, pressing him for answers. She asks if he truly remembers nothing from that day, triggering a memory of the assault he was accused of, forcing Weiss to stammer out another desperate apology. A wave of sheer panic washes over him just as she dips him in a dramatic dance move. This sudden intimacy leaves him completely flustered. As she asks if he also forgot his confession of love, she leans in close, leaving Weiss completely flustered. Her gaze is sharp and unwavering, and as the dance concludes, the crowd applauds, bidding him farewell before she simply walks away. He is left alone, recalling how she stole his heart that day, but their story was far from over. An imposing man arrives, identified as Weiss's father, Agate Vincent. Back at the mansion, a letter arrives from his father, announcing a dinner with Cynthia at their home. Panic sets in as he learns the dinner is tonight, and to his horror, her carriage is already at the gate. He scrambles, ordering his unprepared staff to get ready, while Lilies notices a second letter from his father. This brings the story back to the present moment, leaving Weiss to wonder what his father is truly planning. Weiss knows he can never get close to the heroine, for she is destined to be with the game's true protagonist, Alan. If Weiss interferes, the entire future could be rewritten, derailing the very scenario he needs to survive. Winning her over would cause the entire story to collapse, and whether she hates him or likes him, the result is ruin. His only choice is to maintain a delicate distance, but she asks if he has forgotten what he said at their first meeting. This question leaves him completely stunned. He recalls his past self's arrogant and condescending tone, prompting him to offer another deep, sincere apology. Her expression softens, admitting she is not entirely unreasonable, and a quiet moment passes between the two of them, alone together in the estate's garden gazebo. This leaves Weiss to curse his increasingly complex fate. Weiss realizes she is a pushover heroine type, easily swayed, recalling how in the original story she fell for the protagonist's speed. But once angered, her stubbornness was a force to be reckoned with. He desperately needs to lower her affection for him, but his shy demeanor only makes her like him more. Just then, Lily's arrives with tea, startling Weiss into a panicked scream. His voice cracks under pressure as he meekly thanks her for the refill, hoping his pathetic display might finally turn her off. Instead, Cynthia's affection meter skyrockets, finding him adorable. Lily's watches them with a neutral expression, pouring the tea, as Cynthia reveals she will be telling her father about their meeting. This entire gathering was meant to discuss their engagement, and after meeting him, she has decided to accept the proposal. This world seems to spin as this new reality sets in, leaving Weiss to curse his fate in this troublesome situation. Weiss's father notes their resemblance but calls his son timid, recalling how he managed to dance with the famous Lady Cynthia, and with a smug grin reveals he immediately arranged their engagement. A strange vision shows the man's childish glee building a sandcastle, his bizarre logic on full display for all to see. Back in the present, the grand Vincent mansion stands tall, where Cynthia's carriage has just arrived at the gates. While she seems delighted by the engagement, Weiss is utterly horrified. It dawns on him this was never just a simple tea party. As the reality of arranged aristocratic marriages sinks in, this was not for politics but a scheme by his father to make him happy, a man who never even appeared in the original story. This menacing image shatters, revealing an absurdly doting parent. A memory surfaces of his father spoiling him rotten with toys. And a horrifying realization begins to dawn on young Weiss. Outside, Lily's looks on with a pained expression. Her voice calls out to a stunned Weiss, tearfully wishing him happiness with another woman, leaving him utterly baffled by her outburst. Without another word, she turns and bolts away, as Weiss calls after her in confusion. When a mysterious woman gives him a new order, chase Lily's. She then presses him, asking if he knows why Lily's was crying. Revealing Lily's feels he was stolen from her. This woman explains Lily's cannot forgive him for ignoring her pain, and now gives him a deadly ultimatum: bring her back or die. Terrified, Weiss immediately sprints after his maid. A sudden realization dawning on him, he finally understands Lily's shock over the engagement, remembering the immense debt he owes her. Realizing he is nothing without her, Weiss chases after Lily's. He desperately calls out her name, admitting she is his only strength. Pleading for her to wait, he reaches out again, but she is already pulling away with incredible speed. Lily's shouts for him to leave her be, moving like a blur. Weiss is stunned, unable to catch her even at his top speed. This chase continues through the woods, her lead only growing as they leap across a wide, rushing river. She insists it cannot be helped, that she is just a maid. But Weiss screams that she is more than that, she is important to him. Leaping into a tree, Lily's reminds him the engagement was his father's decision, and he launches himself after her, yelling it is his decision to make. Suddenly, he asks if she knows about the Academy's retainer system, explaining that high-ranking nobles can bring a single attendant, and he declares his plan to take her because she is the one he trusts most. Lily's asks with teary eyes if she is his number one, her mind racing to process the implications. She believes this means Weiss truly desires her, leaving our boy utterly confused by her assumption. A memory flashes of her leaping over obstacles in training, relentlessly pursuing her targets with incredible skill. In the present, Weiss clings desperately to a cliffside, his consciousness fading from sheer exhaustion. Suddenly, he realizes this is just like his own training, and Lily's watches him, her expression softening, a deep blush spreading across her face. Seeing his determination, she finally stops the chase, declaring that from now on she will be his lover. Weiss can only bow in utter defeat at the cliff's edge, his fate spiraling even further out of his control. Lily's calls his name with a gentle smile, but Weiss, utterly spent, tumbles from the cliff's edge. Without a moment's hesitation, she dives right after him, catching our boy in a dramatic mid-air rescue. She holds him close, telling him to rest easy now, and promises to keep their new relationship a complete secret. Weiss can only stare blankly, his mind reeling from the chaos, as she whispers about their secret love. Lily's then uses some kind of propulsion to slow their fall, sending them crashing into the river far below. This splash forms a heart, sealing his absurd fate. Meanwhile, in a remote cabin, a new story begins. A determined young man prepares for a difficult trial. Revealing this is the game's true protagonist, ready for his entrance exam, and so Weiss is trapped between his fiancée and his new secret lover. Weiss stands before the three women, completely overwhelmed by the situation, a memory of his father's meddling flashing through his mind. Their instructor announces that basic training is now complete, declaring with a confident smirk that it is time for sparring. She turns to Lily's and Cynthia, asking about their combat experience. And Cynthia, though nervous, confidently says she has sparred before. Lily's then eagerly chimes in with her own confirmation, leaving Weiss completely stunned by his maid's hidden talents. To complicate his life further, both women have joined his training, their shared goal being the academy entrance exam in a few months. Cynthia, however, already possesses more than enough power to pass, and Lily's, as his retainer, does not even need to take the test. This instructor points out that neither of them truly requires this training, but if Cynthia works any harder, she will become truly unstoppable. Tossing him a sword, she warns he is creating a power beyond the original story. A training duel is arranged in the open field, and the instructor declares Weiss will fight Cynthia first. Lilies watches this unfold with a knowing smirk, while Cynthia cheers for her fiancé, telling him to do his best. This plan suddenly changes, pitting Weiss against Lilies instead. She warns him there will be no signal to begin. Without a moment's hesitation, she explodes forward with blinding speed. Her eyes locked on her target with fierce intensity, their blades clash in a shower of sparks, forcing Weiss to struggle against her overwhelming assault. This impact of their duel sends a shockwave across the field, as the instructor reminds him of a crucial lesson in combat. Lilies whispers that the first strike is everything, and in a blur of motion she suddenly disengages, leaving Weiss stunned as she vanishes from sight. Weiss stares in utter disbelief, his mind reeling. A dark power seems to awaken in his eyes. A powerful strike erupts from his fist as he clashes blades with a surprisingly skilled Cynthia. Her own shock is visible as she parries his blow, revealing herself to be a powerful ice magic user. Her specialty is high-speed movement, gliding on ice. But Weiss grits his teeth, determined to keep up. She attacks from his blind spots with incredible speed, yet he manages to anticipate her every move. A gasp escapes him, shocked by his own reflexes. With a swift motion, he lands a decisive blow, knocking her off balance. This match is called as Cynthia cries out in embarrassment, trying to explain he only meant to tap her lightly, while a flustered Cynthia admits she has never been so easily defeated. Cynthia comically tries to heal a crying Lilies, and the two girls quickly bond after the match. While their instructor questions how Weiss countered Cynthia's speed, she decides to test if his victory was just a fluke, announcing his next opponent will be Lilies. Weiss protests, worried she is too tired for another match, but they take their positions for the duel anyway. He still thinks he is just fighting a simple maid, forgetting all the superhuman feats he has already witnessed. A sudden dread tells him this fight could be lethal, his eyes widening in a moment of sheer terror. Lilies unleashes a flurry of blindingly fast strikes, creating multiple afterimages that charge him at once, and he grits his teeth, barely able to track her movements, desperately swinging his sword to block the onslaught. Lilies' overwhelming assault catches Weiss completely off guard, a fierce determination suddenly burning in his eyes. Their blades meet again in a furious exchange of blows. While the instructor watches their duel with keen interest, somehow Weiss finds he can perfectly track her every move. His victory over Cynthia was clearly no accident, leaving our boy to wonder how this is even possible. He recalls Lilies was just a minor character in the original story, and Weiss herself admits she is still new to magic, yet her speed and swordsmanship are far beyond his own. Realizing he will lose if he does not go all out, Weiss unleashes a power known as the Sacred Curse, a technique that catches Lilies completely by surprise. She recognizes it as his unique creation magic, a spell that heals allies while inflicting a curse on foes. Outside the circle, Weiss appears utterly defeated, but his hands are planted on the ground, casting a spell. He has intentionally dropped his sword to focus his power, leaving him completely vulnerable to Cynthia's charge. His strategy is revealed, ranged attacks from within a magic circle. And with a cry of now or never, he unleashes his magic, prompting Cynthia to lunge forward for the final blow. Yet Weiss remains perfectly still, watching her approach, a confident, almost sinister smirk spreading across his face. Her blade suddenly smashes against a hexagonal barrier, this impact sending her flying backward across the field. Cynthia can only stare in utter disbelief at his defense, as Weiss calmly states he was not even trying. He reveals his impenetrable domain, a fusion of light and dark magic, a power amplified by his unique observer's eye. Weiss reveals his dark eye creates an impenetrable barrier, but the instructor taunts Lilies, asking if she is already finished. Lilies glares back, her resolve hardening, when the instructor suddenly screams at Weiss to drop his spell. He turns to see Lilies staggering across the field, collapsing completely as her sword clatters away. This instructor declares it is Weiss's complete victory, and he rushes to her side as Cynthia administers a potion. His instructor then demands to know what that magic was, admitting she never thought Lilies could be defeated so quickly. She presses him, asking what other skills he is hiding. Weiss explains his dark heal is actually a sacred curse, a domain that applies a massive debuff to his opponent. It drained Lilies' low magic reserves in an instant, and in return he absorbs all that stolen power for himself. Weiss explains his power grows stronger with every ally he has, a confident glint in his eye revealing his true ambition. This revelation leaves the women completely stunned, when a sudden, terrifying thought hits him. This girl's expressions turn dark, understanding the implication. Panicked, he realizes this is the moment for that, a memory of a promise made under the training tree. He recalls his dream of becoming the strongest in this new world. Horrified that he might have just said it all out loud, this words just slipped out in his panic. His instructor then challenges him to a duel right there, a look of grim acceptance on his face. She is shocked by how much he has grown, her aura flaring. Gripping her weapon, she admits it has been a long time, demanding he take responsibility and show her everything he has got. This grueling training has Weiss in a state of constant terror, their sessions often ending in comical destruction, trapping him between two fiercely competitive girls. In the blink of an eye, months of this regimen fly by. Finally, the day of the Academy entrance exam arrives. Weiss and his companions step onto the grounds of Noblesse Magic Academy, a sprawling campus built for the kingdom's elite. known as the most prestigious institution in the world. As they walk through the massive courtyard, a loud voice suddenly breaks the morning calm. A large brute confronts another student, grabbing him by the collar, his face contorted with rage as he threatens the boy. Just then, Weiss calmly steps in to intervene, his grip stopping the bully's hand cold, leaving the brute completely stunned by the interference. Onlookers immediately recognize Weiss, the infamous Ryokun noble. They also spot Cynthia, confirming the rumors of their engagement. But the identity of the other beautiful girl remains a mystery, as one of them screams in terror, calling him a wicked noble. A dark-haired boy stammers out Weiss's full name in awe, forcing the terrified student to his knees to beg for forgiveness. He then flees the scene as quickly as he can. Weiss sighs, frustrated that his bad reputation still follows him, despite spending 2 years trying to change everyone's impression. Finally, they arrive at the noble's magic academy for the entrance exam, where he vows to defeat a certain man today. That very man suddenly appears, thanking him for some unseen help. This boy introduces himself with a friendly handshake as Alan, then asks if he is the one called Weiss, and our boy accepts the challenge with a steely gaze. A new rival, Alan, suggests they both aim to pass, his gaze locking onto Weiss with quiet intensity. He extends a hand for a handshake. Just as a bell rings, signaling the exams start, these two stand before the Grand Academy building, while Lilies and Cynthia remind Weiss the preliminaries are beginning. A young woman suddenly appears, telling Alan they must hurry, pulling him away from the tense standoff with Weiss. She introduces herself as Shally, Alan's childhood friend, and the two rush off towards the exam hall. Weiss is left with a strange, unsettling feeling, remembering his own hesitation to shake Alan's hand. Just speaking with the boy filled him with inexplicable dread, a feeling he simply cannot understand. Inside, he resolves that his goal is not just to pass but to defeat Alan. This written exam begins, every student focused and silent, and an instructor announces the practical combat test is next. Their opponent will be a former student who mitigates all damage. A strange unease grips Weiss, a feeling he cannot suppress. He stands with his companions, ready for the coming trial. Nearby, a student vows to crush him in the exam, but Weiss's ambition suddenly burns even brighter. His goal now to defeat every single person here. In the arena, the rules are simple: force a surrender or a ring out, and the proctor will only intervene if things get too dangerous. One large student suddenly complains his uniform is too small, another questioning if they are truly only 15 years old. Ignoring them, the instructor begins the exam as Alan cheers on a friend. Lilies wonders what happens to the uniforms of those who fail. Cynthia smirks, hinting that life at this academy is pure hell. His grim expression confirms his intent. As they approach the academy's brutal grounds, many students are said to quit or worse here, but Weiss knows the exam itself is not the true test. Rain begins to fall around him, an instructor calls out the next examinee's name, and then Alan's number is announced. This boy looks up, surprised by the pairing. While Weiss stares forward with cold determination, an official orders all spectators to the stands, leaving the two rivals to face off in the rain. This crowd watches as the downpour intensifies, and Alan wishes him a good fight. From the sidelines, his companions cheer him on as the proctor officially begins their duel. This exam begins with a sharp command, and Weiss immediately lunges at an opponent with blinding speed, his target caught completely off guard by the sudden assault, sending the student flying across the arena floor. But Weiss is not finished, his hands already glowing with power, unleashing his signature sacred curse upon the field. This massive magic circle instantly engulfs everyone nearby, and one of them screams out in sudden, searing pain, brought to his knees by the debilitating magic. From the sidelines, Shally watches in absolute horror, while even Lilies and Cynthia are stunned by his ruthlessness. Another student collapses under the curse's immense pressure, yet Weiss seems frustrated, muttering that it is no use, because the one person he wants to crush, Alan, remains completely unaffected, leaving our boy to wonder why his magic suddenly failed. In the arena, the bully is left utterly defeated on the ground. A strange, exhilarating feeling washes over the fallen student. He finally understands the terrifying nature of the boy named Weiss. This exam's brutality leaves everyone stunned, especially Alan, who stands bloodied but resolute. Later, within the academy's hallowed halls, a meeting is called to discuss Weiss's shocking performance. Among them are the Fansent family butler and an S-rank adventurer, Milka Vitas. An instructor reports to the headmaster about the boy's unprecedented results, recalling Weiss's vow to shatter every record in the academy's history. This headmaster, Gills, wants to speak with those who trained him, asking for their assessment of this dangerous new student. Milka Vitas remains silent, her expression unreadable. This instructor, Darius, then poses a question to the headmaster, clarifying that while Weiss's scores were the highest, he did not technically break the records. Gills recalls another student from last year who tied for first place. Milka Vitas tells the headmaster she only provided basic training, and the butler adds he simply supported Weiss with meals. A sudden memory flashes through his mind, recalling how he fed a younger, weaker Weiss a high-protein diet. Darius, the instructor, listens with utter confusion as the butler explains the menu of soy and chicken. Enraged, Darius slams his fist down, demanding they be serious, questioning how that could possibly teach Weiss the sacred curse. Milka Vitas, however, just calmly sips from a large mug, before promptly passing out drunk on the table. This headmaster tells Darius to calm down, explaining this is just her way. His thoughts then drift to a different student, one he pitied. In the rain, that same student helps a battered Alan to his feet, revealing Alan was on the brink of death during his own exam. This blonde student smirks, blaming the entire incident on Weiss. Darius angrily reveals that Alan was his own student, a boy of immense talent, yet he wonders why Alan would repeat the same mistakes from the battlefield. Milk Avita smirks, telling Darius his jealousy is unsightly, prompting him to ask if she is just lashing out because he lost. This butler intervenes, blaming Milk for not training Weiss properly. Turning to the headmaster, he admits his own anxiety about Weiss's admission, but Gills assures him Weiss would never use his power on the weak because the boy he once knew has changed. With acceptance letters in hand, Weiss's companions admire his dedication, and the three celebrate their hard-earned victory together. Sometime later, the new students gather at the academy, where an instructor welcomes them to their first day. She introduces herself as Chloe, their new homeroom teacher. As a familiar face in the crowd looks on with surprise, while Weiss simply smiles, ready for whatever comes next. Lilies and Cynthia watch on, their faces filled with worry, while another student looks on in utter disbelief. And a girl with glasses observes the scene with cold calculation. This trio's journey to Noblesse Magic Academy has truly begun, with Weiss's gaze fixed on his singular goal. He sits in the classroom, the exam day finally here, his thoughts drifting back to his rival Alan. Weiss recalls the immense pressure of their duel, remembering his vow to secure a victory against him. At that time, he was consumed by his own dark emotions. Yet no matter how many times he struck Alan down, the boy kept rising. His opponent's fury only grew with each brutal exchange, and though Weiss won, the victory felt hollow. Now he feels the sting of being upstaged by the hero, just as an official stares at a device in complete shock. Suddenly, every student's hand begins to glow. This instructor explains the light on their hands, revealing a crest worth 1,000 points. Utterly confused, the students question the system. But the teacher's expression remains unreadable. These points, she explains, will follow them until graduation. At present, everyone starts with 1,000, but she then singles out Weiss Fansent. His exam performance has earned him 2,000 points, sending the entire class into disbelief. A student immediately complains about the unfair handicap, as others demand a proper explanation. A faint smirk plays across her lips, leaving Weiss completely bewildered by her attitude. She simply tells them they will understand better through experience. Chloe orders every student to grab a wooden sword and head outside, leaving the class looking on with nervous anticipation. On the field, she announces a combat test is about to begin. Her cold expression reveals she will not be helping them until graduation, and if their points ever reach 0, they will be expelled on the spot. This brutal rule sends a shockwave through the new students. As the instructor cryptically hints at today's objective, she declares that someone's points will be targeted, forcing them to fight until one person is completely crushed. Elsewhere, Milk Avitas drinks heavily, surrounded by defeated men, complaining that her days have grown dull since Weiss left. A sudden, mischievous idea seems to strike her, and she considers getting a teaching license just to kill time. Back at the academy, a blonde student approaches Weiss's group, introducing himself as Ray and mentioning he saw Weiss's incredible test. Weiss, Lilies, and Cynthia form a tight-knit group. As another student, Rui Millicent, oozes with arrogance. He was a top graduate from the original story, a supposed genius, but in this timeline he is brought to his knees in defeat, his point total reduced to a humiliating 0. This instructor coldly asks if he understands his fate, ordering Rui to withdraw from the academy immediately. In that moment, his entire world shatters. Another student watching the brutal expulsion with pity, knowing it was Alan who utterly crushed the former prodigy. Later, in the vast and empty dining hall, a full tray of food sits untouched before him as Weiss contemplates his next move. His only goal was to defeat Alan, nothing more, yet the current situation has spiraled out of his control. Weiss ponders why the heroine has become his fiancée. A memory surfacing of a student who vanishes on the first day. His plan is already spiraling out of control. On top of that, his own negative emotions begin to stir, an inner darkness commanding him to attack everyone around him, his hand trembling with the urge to crush them all, for if he gives in, he will be hated just like in the original story. This internal pressure leaves him completely speechless. He tries to ground himself, his gaze drifting upward. When Cynthia's voice cuts through, asking if he wants to crush them all, she tells him it is fine if that is what he truly desires, leaving our boy completely taken aback by her acceptance. A nearby chef interrupts, thanking them for the meal, but Weiss is still confused, asking why she would say such a thing to him, and Cynthia simply reminds him where they are, Noblesse Magic Academy. Weiss stares in utter disbelief. Cynthia admits she was honestly worried for him. Recalling a time he apologized for her kindness, she explains his exam performance made her reconsider, leaving Weiss to ponder her words. At dinner, a chef offers Cynthia another serving, and Lilies quickly agrees with Cynthia's assessment. Cynthia explains that their world is a cruel one, but Lilies declares her unwavering support for Weiss, a declaration that catches our boy off guard. This chef again offers Cynthia more food, while Cynthia insists her fiancé must crush all rivals. Her words seem to reach him on a deeper level. Both Lilies and Cynthia smile, their message clear, leaving a flustered Weiss to thank them for their support. A nearby chef expresses his relief at their conversation, and Lilies chimes in, offering her own advice to Weiss, suggesting a coin flip can decide his path if he is lost. Weiss considers the idea, a small smile on his face. With his plans already in shambles, he prepares to flip. resolving to empty his mind and let the coin decide his fate. Just as the chef grabs him, pleading for him to eat the food, this coin soars through the air as everyone looks on, landing on the floor and spinning rapidly, an outcome that leaves both Weiss and the chef stunned. One side of the coin depicts the kingdom's castle, while the other bears the mark of the strongest dragon. Heads means he will fight his dark urges and befriend Alan, but if it lands on the dragon, his hand hovers over the result. At that moment, another student approaches their table from across the hall. A new student cheerfully approaches Weiss, offering a dropped item, an act that catches Alan's immediate attention. This boy explains their previous fight helped him get into the academy, admitting he was hoping for a reunion. Alan interjects, stating he only wanted another battle. A competitive smirk spreads across his face, and the two rivals clasp hands, a challenge accepted. Revealing a coin, Alan declares his own desire for a rematch. This tension between them is palpable even in the dining hall line, while a nearby chef weeps with joy over the students' appetites. Later, during a combat test, a powerful spell erupts across the arena, sending a female student flying backward in defeat. Her opponent, Alan, grins sadistically at his victory. Chloe, their instructor, immediately calls a halt to the match. As the crest of the defeated student, Chris Schlegel, is displayed, a defeated student learns their fate is expulsion, while another roars with desperate fury, only to be cut down in a single brutal strike. This victor, Alan, smirks with cold satisfaction, declaring another rival has been officially expelled. Screams of the defeated echo through the forest. As one by one, students are eliminated from the academy. Another falls, their dreams of graduation shattered. And yet another is slammed into a wall, their name forgotten. Even one buried to his neck faces the same harsh reality. Meanwhile, Cynthia praises Weiss for taking out 6 rivals already, and he orders his team to flank their next target. A confident smirk crosses his face as he thinks of Alan, realizing his rival has erased all his hesitation. Cynthia suddenly turns to Lily's with a chilling smile, her sword ready. During a combat test, Cynthia watches in alarm. As Weiss vows to crush his opponent head-on, his fierce determination aimed at shattering the story's script. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the academy, a lone girl sits in the darkness, her spirit broken. Her empty dorm room is silent under the full moon, and she feels she must carry on all by herself. This clock on her device shows she is at her absolute limit, leaving her to desperately plead for anyone to help. Back on the field, a bird signals the match's conclusion, and a hand raises the captured enemy flag in victory. Ray announces that Weiss's team is triumphant, but his face is a mask of pure unadulterated shock, an expression of disbelief mirrored on Weiss's face. 1 month has now passed since their enrollment. Weiss dominates another opponent in a brutal duel. As a tally shows, 10 students have already been expelled, and with a dark smirk, he acknowledges taking out 7 himself. Later, students gather around the training results board. Shocked to see Weiss Vincent ranked first in every category, his eyes burn with an unwavering, cold focus. Suddenly, a student named Duke confronts him directly, demanding to know how he became so overwhelmingly powerful. He recalls how Weiss easily bypassed a complex magic trap, while Alan effortlessly crushed his own opponents in the flag battle. Alan's score is revealed to be an astounding 5,700 points, prompting Duke to question what kind of person he even is. But Alan simply apologizes for losing to Weiss again. Cynthia reassures him, telling him to just win next time. From across the room, her gaze lands on Weiss sitting alone. Cynthia watches him with a stern, knowing gaze, while Weiss grapples with his own inner turmoil, finally accepting this is the path he must walk. He recalls the original story's Weiss, who unleashed his rage on everyone, but now he channels that darkness into official combat, a legitimate release with no regrets or shame. Elsewhere, a student named Shirley blushes under an admirer's gaze, a sight that seems to catch Weiss completely off guard. Meanwhile, in an office, an instructor confronts a struggling student, addressing the girl by her name, Karuda. This teacher delivers a harsh ultimatum: score points or face the consequences, and a dejected Karuda Vile can only meekly agree. But the instructor coldly dismisses her response. Her cruel words leave Karuda trembling in fear. A name that now echoes in Weiss's mind. Weiss recalls the original story's script: she is expelled next, a loss that fuels her best friend's desperate drive to graduate, all part of a side story he was supposed to just observe. Except this time, he was the one who got her best friend expelled. Now the consequences of his actions begin to unfold, as the defeated girl leaves the academy with nothing left. This weight of this deviation leaves Weiss utterly speechless. His reaction catches the attention of a nearby student, as 2 others ask the girl, Karuda, about the next test. This exam is a tag team battle, and they wonder who her partner is, cruelly pointing out her best friend was just expelled. They laugh, recalling how Weiss was the one who crushed her completely, their taunts continuing as they point directly at him, but he simply turns and walks away from their chatter, leaving Karuda stunned as he approaches her directly. Weiss asks a flustered girl to be his partner for the next test, their meeting taking place on a cliff overlooking the academy. She nervously asks why he would choose someone like her, a low-ranking student on the verge of being expelled. Besides, she adds he already has his fiancée, Cynthia, but a sudden presence cuts her words short. In the nearby woods, she spots a dark, menacing figure watching them, a terrifying aura radiating from what looks like Cynthia herself. This girl, Karuda, freezes in terror as Weiss asks what is wrong. and he smirks, telling her not to worry about his fiancée. He explains Cynthia only wants him to be number one, yet Karuda cannot shake the chilling, killing intent she just felt. She turns to point toward the woods, only to find Weiss already walking away. He coldly states he is not saving her, he has no time for pity. Karuda wonders if she just imagined that presence, but Weiss tells her it is a waste for her to be expelled. He explains that her flight magic is truly exceptional, a spell even skilled mages struggle to master. Back in the woods, Cynthia confirms it was not her imagination. Weiss states that for the next test, teaming up is simply efficient. Stunned, Karuda asks why he would need her power, when Cynthia suddenly appears right behind her, complimenting the girl on her impressive perception. Karuda realizes she sensed magic even Weiss could not detect, a fact that seems to greatly amuse his fiancée. Cynthia reveals her mastery of assassination arts, leaving Karuda absolutely terrified by the revelation. This next exam, Cynthia explains, is a joint tag team battle, and against upperclassmen they need her unique skills to win. Cynthia and Lily's corner Karuda, announcing their own partnership. Their menacing glares leave the girl absolutely terrified. This, Weiss explains, is exactly why he chose her, declaring they have no time and must begin training now. Karuda can only stare at the ground, overwhelmed by his intensity. Yet through her tears, she forces herself to agree, and so their special training for the next exam begins, starting with a lesson on flight magic in the forest. Weiss smirks, admitting he is finally getting the hang of it, though Karuda points out he only flew for 2 seconds. She explains her role is to carry him during the test, so he does not actually need to learn the spell himself. But he saw this as a valuable opportunity to learn, leaving Karuda completely baffled by his reasoning. He tells her any magic can become a weapon if used correctly. Karuda mentions she is a specialist in flight magic, so Weiss asks her to train him unrelated to the upcoming exam, leaving the girl completely flustered by the sudden request. In exchange, he makes a solemn vow she will not be expelled. His proposal includes continued training even after the test is over, making Karuda realize the cruel rumors about him are wrong. She is shocked to learn he is such a hard worker and happily agrees. These two outcasts formally strike a deal, becoming partners. Weiss knows the rumors paint him as a lazy, corrupt noble, but his dedication now inspires Karuda to be just like him. Unseen, a female instructor observes their new alliance from a window, reporting directly to her superior about Weiss Vincent's activities. This academy's headmaster reviews the report, shocked by his point total. As the instructor confirms, Weiss single-handedly expelled over half the students, proof that this year's entire class is exceptionally ruthless. She recalls Alan, the disciple of Darius, training relentlessly, a boy who grew stronger each time he was knocked down, but 2 others also surprised her with their growth. Cynthia and Lily's locked in a brutal, desperate duel. This 2 of them have been clashing constantly, growing at a speed unthinkable at the start of the term. Engaging in life-or-death training sessions together, they fought without proper gear, pushing past their limits, using real swords in their dangerous practice bouts, a training regimen that pushed them to the very edge. This brutal method forged them into stronger fighters, leaving both utterly broken after every session. Lily's pants her face a mask of exhaustion and fury, while Cynthia mirrors her intense, driven expression, only to then heal each other's wounds before the next round. Lily's admits Cynthia's strength is undeniable, but vows she will become even stronger. Cynthia's own goal is to be a worthy partner for Weiss, a quiet determination burning in her eyes. Lily's echoes the sentiment, wanting to grow stronger for him too, to be someone he can rely on in times of crisis. They playfully tell each other they are already strong enough, but their smiles quickly turn dark and menacing, revealing their shared goal is to tear Karuda from his side. Miles away, Karuda shivers in her bed, feeling a sudden chill. A new dawn breaks over the academy, and on the day of the exam, students gather in the courtyard. 3 upperclassmen stand apart from the crowd, as one named Duke Billion proposes a game of chance, deciding their partners with a single round of rock, paper, scissors. This joint exam kicks off with teams facing their opponents. An instructor announces the next pair will be sent to Gariel Mountain, teleporting Weiss and Karuda directly into a dense forest. From high above, Weiss lays out their simple strategy: hunt the upperclassmen. He asks a nervous Karuda if she is prepared for what is next. As a broadcast confirms, all students are now on the mountain. His confident smirk contrasts sharply with her terrified expression, and their targets are revealed, a joint team of third-year students. Elsewhere, Alan and his partner brace for the tag team survival battle, while other ruthless teams prepare to join the fray. Even more opponents are scattered throughout the forest battlefield, and an instructor with a rose in her hair officially starts the test. Suddenly, a bizarre scene unfolds on a beach with a lounging woman, where she casually remarks about a man she'd almost forgotten. Her eye widens with a sudden, sharp realization. This instructor recalls her own ambition to teach at this academy. As the joint exam begins in a remote mountain range, a student screams, paralyzed by a sudden electric attack, while his opponent calmly asks what is wrong. Their teammate can only watch in utter shock, and another scream echoes from high above the trees. 2 lower-classmen, Ariel and Vivid, have entered the fray. On the ground, their targets are left completely incapacitated, and are instantly teleported back to the academy in defeat. This ruthless efficiency catches the eye of two upperclassmen, one of whom grins, calling the first year's easy prey. But their strategy is not so simple to see through. His partner warns him not to underestimate them. Elsewhere, other students discuss the rumors about this year's class, noting that all the big names from their own year were already expelled. An upperclassman struggles to recall a certain student's name, finally remembering the infamous Weiss Vincent. Meanwhile, in the forest, two students clash in a brutal duel, one of them a blonde upperclassman with a vicious grin. This observer's expression suddenly shifts to disbelief. As his partner Liddy is declared out of the fight, this sudden loss leaves the bandaged student in shock, a look that quickly twists into pure fury. He unleashes a devastating dark magic attack from the shadows, catching the blonde opponent completely off guard. This blast sends the swordsman flying backward, but the attacker realizes his target has vanished from sight. High above, the blonde student dives down from the sky. Impressed by the power of these intermediate students, he counters with a condensed chantless fire spell of his own. This bandaged student recognizes the star on his opponent's shoulder, realizing this upperclassman is a top-tier student, and as the blonde swordsman dives, he prepares a counterattack. But his target lands gracefully on an unnatural wall of magic, prompting the student to slam his hand onto the ground, unleashing a massive pillar of dark energy from below. He screams for his opponent Weiss to burn in the blast, and a colossal explosion erupts from the forest floor. Yet Weiss zips sideways through the air, dodging the attack completely, leaving his opponent stunned as a treetop is incinerated. This student cannot believe Weiss changed direction mid-flight. As our boy propels himself forward with another burst of speed, diving straight down for a finishing blow, his terrified opponent can only let out a scream before Weiss's attack lands with devastating impact. This blonde swordsman's counterattack sends his opponent flying, revealing his own unique technique, the unnatural wall, a skill he created after failing to master flight magic. He forged this transparent barrier from opposing magic types, allowing him to create a temporary foothold in midair. While the platform is unstable and drains his power, it is more than enough to defeat the bandaged student. He smirks, satisfied with his unorthodox fighting style, but his victory is interrupted by a sudden clash nearby, his eyes widening as he turns toward the sound. A mohawked upperclassman's attack is stopped by a hexagonal shield, leaving the aggressor completely stunned by the defense. He looks up just in time to see a ball of light descending. It detonates with a blinding flash right in his face, sending the shocked fighter hurtling backward from the blast. An intermediate student named Mihid is left completely paralyzed, as Karuda apologizes to a surprised Weiss from her staff, admitting she attacked another team without noticing him. He simply thanks her for the unexpected save, but their new opponent is stunned she took his partner down in one blow. A smirk revealing he is already analyzing their every move, he deduces Weiss's defensive magic is powerful but inefficient, and his focus now shifts to the partner of the fallen student. A new foe with a wicked grin mocks Weiss's low rank, boasting that his data-driven attacks guarantee their defeat, then tosses his glasses aside, powering up with a roar. Weiss and Karuda can only watch, bracing for what is coming. As the student reveals that without his glasses, his power multiplies by 3.14 times, reciting the digits of pi while gathering immense energy, he looms over them, unleashing what he calls a sacred curse. This bandaged student's face twists in sudden disbelief, as his strength mysteriously drains from his body. His glasses fall, the opponent's technique completely unknown to him, a move that defies all of his collected combat data. This blonde swordsman scoffs, telling him he should have researched more, before striking a final victorious pose with his blade. Archimedes, the intermediate student, is officially declared incapacitated, a simple victory for the upperclassmen. Elsewhere, Weiss reveals his plan to Karuda with a wicked grin, showing her the massive point total they have already acquired. Her own score has skyrocketed from 22 to over 1,300, leaving the girl completely paralyzed by the sudden jump. Meanwhile, two other students walk through a desolate field, when a familiar voice greets them from behind. It is Alan and his partner Sherry, ready for their next confrontation. This two new challengers approach, one asking for a fight, leaving Alan and Sherry completely caught off guard. Elsewhere, Weiss takes down another student named Miffys instantly, watching as his defeated opponent teleports away in a flash. He complains that no intermediate or upperclassmen are showing up, and Karuda confirms their immediate area is now empty. A magical bird announces yet another student's defeat, making Weiss realize a powerful team must have already cleared this zone. A wicked grin spreads across his face with a new idea, as he and Karuda take to the skies, vowing their targets will not escape. High above the forest, he tells her they are done hunting lower-classmen. Karuda looks shocked but agrees to the dangerous new plan. He then reveals the real reason he chose her as a partner: her rare and difficult mastery of flight magic. Her eyes widen, finally understanding his true strategy. Weiss kneels, his perception skill flaring to life. His partner is stunned by his stealthy magic, a target acquired, he whispers. Okay, with a wild grin he launches himself into the hunt, plummeting from the sky to scan for his prey. Below, students are already wary of aerial assaults, but Weiss prepares to strike from their blind spot, and an unsuspecting student is instantly incapacitated. This defeated fighter is immediately teleported away, a simple one-shot victory from an unguarded angle. This ruthless hunt is fueled by his disdain for an instructor, and with only 20 minutes left, Karuda checks the time, Weiss frantically orders her to find more upperclassmen, but she insists their 2070 points are more than enough. He screams back that it is nowhere near enough. Weiss reveals the point system has special privileges, a system that rewards students with rooms, waived tuition, and even early graduation. And as students advance, the weak are simply weeded out. In the Academy's entire history, no one has ever reached S rank. A realization dawns on Karuda's face. Asking if his goal is to steal points and reach that legendary rank, his confident smirk is her only answer, but he shouts that his target is actually B rank. S rank might be the ultimate goal, but it is not his current priority. Because B rank comes with a luxurious private room, a room that offers unlimited high-class fruit via room service. A memory from a year ago begins to surface, where the only joy in his harsh training was the dessert afterward. This training was so brutal, so relentless, that he eventually lost his ability to even taste the fruit. He recalls a butler serving a special meal on a silver platter, revealing an impossibly luxurious slice of melon. That day, he rediscovered a taste he thought he'd lost forever. A rare fruit so exquisite it is almost never available. To taste it again, he is determined to steal every point he can, and he begs Karuda to help him until the very end. She cannot believe his entire motivation is just his appetite, leaving her completely speechless and flustered, because her family actually grows those very melons. If she told him, he might even visit her home, a thought that makes her blush uncontrollably. Until a sudden realization hits her with a jolt. A massive pillar of dark energy erupts from the forest below, catching both of them completely by surprise. Weiss turns to her, a grim understanding on his face. That dark energy is coming from a monster, she realizes, her face twisting in terror as she warns Weiss away. She urges him to escape, then turns back in confusion because Weiss has not moved, standing his ground below. Instead, he crouches low, preparing to charge forward, leaving Karuda to call out his name in disbelief. With a wild grin, he rushes toward the danger, his partner screaming, questioning his reckless advance. His target is a serene girl with long hair, a bird at her side, whom he finds in a sunlit clearing, completely calm. She turns, a small smile playing on her lips as she names him, this new opponent standing with an air of quiet confidence. Her name is Eva Avery, an intermediate student. Weiss greets his upperclassman with a challenging smirk, then points his blade, demanding a fight. A sinister smile appears in the darkness, belonging to a woman delighted by Weiss's challenge. She is Eva Avery, the Academy's strongest student, a character Weiss knows as the game's final boss. In the original story, her power made her life so dull that she eventually quit the Academy entirely. No player had ever managed to defeat her, but Weiss knows he has to fight her now. With only 10 minutes left, she dares him to come at her, and he charges forward, unleashing his full power. Elsewhere, Alan faces Eva and her two partners alone. His own partner, Sherry, already defeated on the ground. He tells them to forget him and focus on their fight, but they taunt him, saying Weiss will never acknowledge him if he loses. Standing alone, Alan prepares for the impossible battle. Alan roars, his face contorted with rage and power, leaving his opponents to watch in stunned disbelief. As a brilliant light explodes from his awakened form, elsewhere the exam officially comes to an end, leaving Weiss panting and utterly exhausted from his fight. His opponent calmly notes that their time is up, standing completely unfazed amidst the destruction. She admits she never thought she'd be forced to use her magic, a chilling realization for Weiss that she was holding back. This powerful student, Eva Ebley, acknowledges his strength with a smirk, her sacred curse and dark eye proving too much for him, a devastating truth for Weiss, who used every card he had. Every one of his attacks was rendered completely useless, bringing him to his knees as she reveals her purpose for being here. He grits his teeth, thinking he will have to quit after this. A woman with a rose in her hair smirks, taking an interest in him, and his face twists into a crazed grin, deciding to stay at the Academy. A magical bird announces the end of the exam for all students, confirming Weiss will be sent to the prestigious Noblesse Academy. This mysterious woman watches his departure with a knowing smile. Leaving behind the exam grounds, a desolate, shattered wasteland, he reflects on how he has completely changed the original scenario, while a student named Eva is revealed to be staying behind. Karuda cries with joy, realizing she has been spared from expulsion. But among the remaining students, two figures stumble forward, two of the top-ranked girls, battered and supporting one another. Weiss stares in disbelief, recognizing Cynthia and Lilith are defeated. His mind races, wondering who could have possibly beaten them. As one of the girls apologizes to her partner for their failure, admitting she was arrogant to think she was strong enough, Lilith apologizes for dragging her partner into this painful mess. But Cynthia insists she is the one who should be sorry, blaming her own weakness for their humiliating defeat. Weiss listens in stunned silence, trying to process it all, until one of the girls reveals who actually won the fight. Their victor was none other than Alan. His eyes snap toward the boy who stands over his fallen partner, a battered but triumphant Alan looking down at Sherry. This revelation leaves Weiss completely shocked, as Alan turns to face him from across the field. A wild, almost unrecognizable look in his eyes. Weiss's shock quickly melts into a challenging grin, while Alan stares back, his newfound power still simmering. With this final confrontation, the tag team exam officially concludes, and the students return to their normal academy life. Weiss finally reaches B rank, securing a luxurious life, but the daily grind against weaker students continues, believing he'd finally earned a moment of peace, until the instructor makes a sudden announcement. revealing a temporary lecturer will be joining them, and a new voice greets them from the doorway. This entire class turns to see who has arrived, and Weiss's face freezes in absolute shock, a reaction mirrored by his fellow students. One boy is immediately smitten by her beauty, while Weiss's vision blurs with pure terror. As the woman introduces herself as their new combat instructor, Milka Bitas, she scans the room with a chilling gaze, asking for questions, sending our boy into a full-blown panic attack, just as a hand shoots up with a confident yes. A new instructor, Duke Viridian, asks why another teacher is present, and from the shadows, Weiss grins, glad someone else asked. This teacher in question appears, her face hidden in darkness, and she snaps at Duke to be quiet, clearly flustered. He just maintains his cheerful, oblivious smile, standing before the class as the new temporary instructor. Weiss grits his teeth, completely infuriated by her presence. Another teacher, Chloe, explains they are short-staffed because upperclassmen now constantly challenge Weiss to fights. To handle the extra training, they brought in Milk Avidus, a fact that clearly infuriates Weiss to no end. Milk glares, thinking that choosing him was a mistake, her intimidating aura flaring as she senses his thoughts. Weiss panics, realizing she somehow knows what he is thinking. And he quickly denies everything, claiming he was just spacing out. A new training regimen begins with a simple command, push-ups, and on a barren cliffside, Weiss is forced into grueling exercise, his face contorted in pure agonizing effort. This instructor notes he has grown stronger since they last met, and a terrible suspicion begins to dawn on Weiss. She smirks, asking if he came here just for her to torment him. Other students are stunned to see him actually obeying an adult. But her terrifying gaze freezes them in their tracks. They try to flee, only to be stopped by her cold voice. As she declares the entire academy is filled with weaklings, her new decree, everyone climbs the mountain until midnight, while Weiss is ordered to do push-ups the entire way up. This instructor's methods are both brutal and absurdly cruel, turning every combat lesson into a living nightmare. Now, the mere thought of training fills every student with dread. But the next day brings a blinding new challenge. This class is gathered at the academy's pool, wondering what kind of lesson this could possibly be. Their attention is drawn to a group at the gate, a girl with an intense look shouting at the boys, revealing the girls' class is joining for water training, and among them is a girl with a more reserved demeanor. Weiss and his classmates are frozen in absolute shock, while the girls question their stunned silence. A sudden fire then ignites in Weiss's eyes, and he takes a single determined step forward, leading the other boys in a frantic sprint, all of them screaming and fighting to be first, a sight that leaves the girls utterly disgusted. Only one dark-haired boy seems to grasp the true meaning of this lesson. A new training exercise begins with Weiss facing off against a girl, expertly dodging her attacks by shifting his body's axis. His opponent relentlessly attacks from all angles, her movements creating a very distracting display, leaving the other male students completely stunned by her technique. Suddenly, she uses a bizarre spinning move to unbalance him, and with a final push sends her splashing into the water below. His classmates erupt in cheers, praising his victory, but the female students look on with utter disgust, completely unfazed as he looks for his next challenger. From the mist, a new opponent emerges, armed with a spiked club, and she calmly announces that she will be his opponent. Weiss's confident grin instantly vanishes, replaced by pure terror, as he stammers for her to wait, insisting he is done for the day, completely overwhelmed and screaming that he has had enough of this. This instructor's training methods were pure chaos, and after one incident, water training was banned entirely. In the quiet cafeteria, Karuda nervously gets her food, holding a tray with a simple, well-prepared meal. She finds a spot to eat completely by herself, until Cynthia and Lilith approach, mocking her for being alone. Karuda quietly explains that Weiss already has company, but Cynthia insists she'd only get in his way. This leaves Karuda believing their partnership was temporary. These two girls taunt her, saying she should thank Weiss for saving her. Her face flushes with a sudden, defiant anger, which catches Lilith completely by surprise, who slams the table, demanding to know what that look means. Karuda glares back, thinking they are just parasites with no power. They scream back that she is nothing without Weiss and should just quit. In the academy cafeteria, a group of girls approaches, and a voice calls out to a nervous Karuda, her eyes widening in sheer, unadulterated terror, as two students with unsettling smiles invite her to join them. This simple invitation sends Karuda into a complete panic. Now trapped between them, she eats in terrified silence, until the blonde girl finally breaks the tension, admitting she has completely reevaluated her opinion of Karuda, recalling how she and Weiss defeated 24 intermediate students. This girl calls it a record, but Karuda clarifies Weiss did it all himself, though the blonde insists even he could not have done it alone, crediting Karuda's flight magic and scouting for their victory. It is a frustrating admission, but she acknowledges her total defeat, and her partner asks Karuda to pass on their regards to Weiss. This sudden show of respect leaves Karuda completely speechless. This blonde girl angrily demands to know why Karuda is avoiding them, and Karuda stammers, remembering how they used to corner her. But now the girl just offers a gentle smile, proposing that from now on they should all be friends with Weiss. A blushing Karuda tearfully agrees to the surprising offer. While elsewhere, Cynthia smugly tells the original bullies to eat their cold food. Her former tormentors suddenly wonder where Weiss has gone, revealing he has been laid up in bed, completely mummified in bandages, as his instructor Milk stands over him, asking if he is ready for his healing. This narrative explains that Karuda trained hard after that, getting revenge on the bullies who were then expelled.